Hello, beautiful mums. Welcome back to Mind, Body, Soul Mama. Today, we're going to be talking about something that feels really taboo to talk about, but it's worth asking the question. And it's something that we as mothers feel within, but so many of us don't actually validate ourselves in. And that is the question around why babies actually stop crying during extinction-based sleep training. So extinction-based sleep training is where you literally are not responding to your child. So they are methods that have been encouraged probably for the past 100 or so years. And we really want to ask the question, does quiet actually mean calm and sleeping? Or is something else possibly happening in their nervous system? It's really important to say that this conversation isn't about shame or judgment. It's about understanding your choices and honoring our intuition as mums. I'm going to walk you through some research and what it shows in layman's terms, from sleep science to stress physiology and attachment theory. Then I'm going to dive in and hopefully give you a roadmap of what you can do instead. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is the study that really changed everything that I thought I knew about sleep training. So if you're new here, I was a nurse for 10 years and a good part of my career was actually working within the sleep space. I was trained by other registered nurses on how to get babies sleeping, and it worked. It worked really well. And I used a very gentle modified version of the Ferber method. However, this study really did throw a spanner in the works for me in that I didn't know what to believe anymore. It was the first time that I had seen something that wasn't directly related to sleep as such. It was more about the stress response in babies. So let's start with that study that changed my entire world and the whole conversation that I was having with families around sleep. So this was done by Middlemiss et al. In 2012 on early human development. Okay, so researchers looked at babies aged 4 to 10 months during extinction sleep training. So this was a in-service, so an in-clinic overnight stays in this sleep training facility. So what they actually found was that by night 3, babies had stopped crying at bedtime. So they had stopped crying and it looked like they were asleep. Behaviorally, it looked like the sleep training had succeeded. But their saliva was tested for cortisol and their cortisol stayed elevated. So their bodies were still very much in a stress state. Meanwhile, mums that have brought their babies there, their cortisol dropped because they felt more confident and less distressed. And I would imagine that because we've been taught that no crying equals success, that they believe they had succeeded. So the behavior changed, the crying stopped, but the internal physiology for that baby didn't. And what the researchers called this was physiological asynchrony. And it perfectly explains why so many mothers sense within their bodies the baby's quiet, but why is she quiet? Like, I don't feel super comfortable with what has just happened. And your body wasn't wrong, your intuition was right. So why quiet doesn't always mean calm. So this pattern of quiet on the outside, stressed on the inside appears across many different areas of infant psychology. So 2 major bodies of research explain why babies go still when distress isn't responded to. Okay, so when they're crying and you don't respond, it has been proven within studies, very robust studies. There is a study, it's called the still phase paradigm. When a caregiver becomes unresponsive, babies consistently move through. Firstly, they start to protest. So they try to get your attention by crying, reaching for you. They get more aggravated. Secondly, they attempt to reconnect. They try and smile and vocalize. So they try to draw you in with what nature has given them, their adorable cuteness. And then thirdly, if they can't get it, they'll do a reduced movement towards you and on you. They try to avoid your eyes and they go very still. So this last state looks calm, but physiologically, it's actually stress and overwhelm for your baby. Another study that I found is the infant social withdrawal and polyvagal theory. So infant studies show that prolonged, so ongoing, relational stress can lead to a freeze or shutdown response. Okay, so a freeze or shutdown response within our babies, it just looks like them being very quiet, very still, fewer cues for help, easier behavior. It suggests an inwards collapse rather than an overall rest state. This isn't deep sleep, it is self-protection. Your baby's brain has shut down to protect itself. Now, when you combine this knowledge with the Middlemiss cortisol findings, there starts to be a very clear picture for us as both people that worked in the healthcare field and also as a mother, that they're not necessarily self-settling. They are shutting down their cues. Okay? So the question arises, what about other sleep training studies? And this is where it gets really confusing for parents, because even this morning I logged in and there was a few different so-called healthcare professionals, especially in America. I don't know why they're so big in America, but 500,000 followers speaking that this study is not robust and blah, blah, blah. And they were talking about, there was a false graphic made and placed on Facebook, and it said the American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend sleep training, blah, 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 blah. And this particular video, this sleep coach was saying that, they don't say this and there's no evidence that sleep training causes any harm. And what I would say to that is that when you go deeper within that body of research that she's referring to, which I'm about to, there's a few very distinct markers that really show that it isn't an indicator that we aren't causing harm. It's just an indicator that more research needs to be done. So there's a study like Gradisa et al. That shows that graduated extinction doesn't show long-term harm, and on those measures they looked at. Now, there is nuance here. So these studies involved check-ins, so further method, not full extinction. They measured morning and evening cortisol, so just random measure in the morning and a random measure at night, not in the moment stress. So they weren't measuring these babies' cortisol while the sleep training was happening. They really excluded younger or sensitive babies. So most of these babies were 10 months or older, and they focused on behavior. So they focused on the behavior of the infant and how that looked rather than the physiology. So when people say that sleep training has been proven safe, what we have to look at was and wasn't measured. We have to ask ourselves the question, were they measured correctly? Are the studies actually showing physiology? And what renowned research is actually showing across multiple different fields, when you don't just look at the baby as a physical body, you look at their mind, body, and soul. A quiet baby can sometimes mean high cortisol equaling a freeze state. Now, one really interesting statement that I found was from the Australian Association for Infant Mental Health. Their position on extinction-based sleep training was that it may reduce crying, but it may also have the unintended effect of teaching infants not to seek support when distressed. In other words, they stop asking for help. And that was probably the most devastating thing to read as a mother who has used extinction-based sleep methods with my second child. That is the core issue. Maybe it's not causing harm. Maybe it's not causing trauma. Maybe we're being catastrophic when we say that it might be. But they're learning to not cue you. That's exactly what mothers feel within their gut. And fathers. My husband feels the exact same way about this. Moving forward in parenting, one of the most safe factors for your child is that they have a robust relationship with their parent and that they know that they can come to you with anything. We want them to come to us. My question that is raised when I look at this research is, how early does this disconnect start? The first 3 years of your baby's life are creating the blueprint for the rest of their existence on this earth. And we really have to get curious rather than fear, reprimand, or say that, it's uncomfortable for parents to know this, I, as a parent, would have really rather have known all of the evidence and all of the facts before I chose to leave my baby to cry it out. And if you're new here, I have shared this in previous videos. I have used Cry It Out with my second born under the guide of a sleep coach. So it really was a place where I was very vulnerable at the time, and I chose to do something that didn't align with me, even though it didn't feel good at the time. And that is why I create these videos, and that is why I created this business. Now, let's really take a deep dive into why this matters for development. So early cortisol patterns, so early stress patterns, they shape ongoing responses to stress. So how this child reacts when they're, I don't know, they get in trouble at school, or when they have an argument with their spouse down the line. So those early patterns that emerge, they really are building patterns for life. It affects their ability to emotionally regulate. It affects the amygdala and hippocampus, so it actually changes those structures. It affects long-term resilience, okay? And the ability to trust in co-regulation. Co-regulation is something that we as humans have been using for hundreds of thousands of years. And suddenly we've created a culture where that's possibly a negative thing. So when high stress levels happen alongside no response from parents, so when we're leaving them in a really stressful situation that they feel unsafe, and then we're not responding to them, our babies learn that distress is not answered to. It's just safer not to cry. This isn't behavioral discipline. We're not teaching them anything. This is a nervous system adaptation. This is their brain shutting down to protect them. So all of this begs the question, what can we do instead? Okay. Now, there is so much we can do, and I am a holistic sleep coach for a reason. But first of all, this is where everything shifts, because there are ways to support better sleep that don't require any ignorance, any extinction of cues. And these approaches work with a baby's biology and not against it. Firstly, we're going to create a family-friendly rhythm, okay? So not a rigid routine, a rhythm. So babies love predictable patterns because they cannot tell the time, but this helps them know what's coming next. So consistent wake times, exposure to natural morning light, a gentle wind-down routine, and dim lights probably about an hour before bed. So that includes no phone light, no laptops, all of those things. This supports natural melatonin release and sleep timing. So you're naturally building their sleep rhythms without having to train anything into them. Number two, so building healthy sleep pressure gently, okay? So instead of forcing independence on your baby, try to increase sleep pressure by offering daily outdoor time. So if you are somewhere where you have, right now we're in beautiful summer here in Queensland, an afternoon walk can be amazing. That sunset cues millions of receptors on your baby's skin and tells them that melatonin can start increasing now. Evening calm down routine. So that's calm for you as well as a parent, remembering that our babies meet our nervous system state. So where can you relax? Where can you put on some music and have a dance while you're making dinner? Where can you try to calm down your routine? Responsive nap timing. So getting an idea on what is an average for your baby. What is an idea of where they should be at? I have a freebie on my website that gives an idea of these awake times, but all of that is redundant if you're not following your baby's cues. So try to be responsive to their nap times, and those age-appropriate wake windows that they're spooked across many different apps and many different things. They're not evidence-based and they're not well-researched. I haven't been able to find one body of research that has actually looked into them. But on a personal note, I found them really handy. I actually think they're a fantastic guide for parents who have no idea how much a 6-month-old should be sleeping, have no idea how much an 8-month-old should be sleeping. It gives you an idea and a rough guide to look for your baby's cues. Are they tired? Maybe they're just a bit grizzly and need a bit more play. So those things are really about reading your baby's cues. And good sleep is more about biological readiness, not behavioral compliance. Number 3, so using responsive settling instead of extinction. So connection regulates the nervous system and helps their brain enter into sleep states. So responsive options include picking them up every time they get sad, offering them a cuddle, rocking or rhythmic touch. So you can rock them side to side, you can offer bum pats, anything that is in a rhythm. And one really beautiful, theory is that babies love bum pats because when they're upside down in your stomach, they had your heartbeat 24/7, helping them regulate. Staying and supporting them. So give them a cuddle all the way to sleep, feed them to sleep. All of those beautiful things can be amazing for your baby. Side lying settling is amazing if you're a breastfeeding mother. I really love to follow James McKenna's work in safer co-sleeping, as well as say if there's two adults in the house. There have been times in my own home where I've been so tired, fed the baby to sleep, I've drifted off, but my husband's been watching us and he was able to take the baby once she had gone to sleep. And then in arms calming, it's the most natural place in the world for your baby to seek proximity, especially at nighttime. So when babies feel safe, they will sleep easier. Number 4 is probably the biggest, and this is the most underappreciated part of baby sleep, and that is supporting your nervous system too. So as mothers, our regulation shapes baby's regulation too. So small practices make a massive difference. For me, I make sure that I work out 2 to 3 times per week. I make sure that I eat a robust meal at the start of the day and I don't start my day off on coffee or toddler scraps. I will try and deliberately wind down in my evenings. I will ask for help from caregivers around me. So I am very lucky I have my mother-in-law or my mum that can help out occasionally. Small practices in the home make a huge difference. So some other options, really deliberately making your evening slower, pausing to breathe before responding to your baby. So if you have put your baby to sleep and they've woken up, making sure that you're calm when you go in to get them back to sleep. No screen time for you after 8. So we want to get our own natural sleepy hormones coming on board. Co-regulation through touch or voice. So my husband and I really have a relationship where we can actively ask for that. So I'll literally be like, can I have a cuddle? That really helps regulate you and your nervous system. Asking your partner to do a bedtime routine. And the one rebuttal I often get to that is like, oh, but my baby hates it, or they scream, or they don't love my partner putting them to bed. It's completely different for a baby to cry with the loving, caring arms of your partner than it is if you just left them to cry. So if you're feeling touched out, burnt out, need a break, sub in your partner. Your baby will adjust with practice and time. And again, it's completely different than if you were leaving them to cry. Your calm as a mother and a father is the anchor of your home. Your children will follow that. Number 5, reducing mother's exhaustion without breaking attachment. So you can improve your nights by making your own bedtime earlier. So no more doom scrolling on the couch till 11 p.m. Reducing your revenge bedtime procrastination, which is essentially your own version of fight or flight. You are staying up at night because you're avoiding going to bed. Reducing the mental load. So simplify your evenings. If you're so burnt out at the end of the week, how can you make dinners really simple and easy? Using daytime to do micro rests. So I will literally meditate for 5 minutes in the school pickup line before getting my daughter. I try to create space where I can regulate myself and get those just tiny few minutes of stillness. Lowering your household expectations. So you can't see my house right now, but it looks like someone has robbed us. And that is truly because once or twice a week, my husband and I will do like a 20-minute clean, but it's really been a season of surrendering. We have 3 children, so we are very busy parents. We also plan recovery nights. So when I say recovery nights, we have nights where like our oldest 2 will go and sleep over at Nanny or Granddad's house. And that really does take the load off us and we can catch up on some sleep. And often in the morning, my beautiful man will take the baby and I will get to have a sleep in. So a well-rested mother is more patient, more attuned, and more regulated to her child's needs. So this is where I'm going to put a little bit of the onus back on moms that we have to advocate for our own needs and we have to be radically selfish in this season. Even if you've been taught that being selfish is rude or wrong or that you should handle it all yourself, it's going to affect you and it's going to affect your baby. And the people that love you the most will want to help look after you. So make sure you're advocating for that. Number 6, honoring temperament. So some babies are very sensitive. They are more alert, they are more intense, or they may be higher needs. They're not broken. You don't need to fix anything about them. They're not bad sleepers. When you stop looking at them as something to fix and start trying to understand them, sleep will get easier. And this is a very real example is my first baby. Because she was my first, I had no idea that she was my highly sensitive child. And I love the idea of the orchid and the dandelion child. My firstborn is an orchid child, so she's very sensitive to lots of different things. But when she is gold, she is gold. Like, she is the most stunning little lady. And my second child is a little bit more robust. Like, we feed him, we look after him, we give him cuddles, but his sleep needs were completely different. So don't compare your 2 children or 3 children to each other, because they will all have completely different temperaments. Number 7, and my final tip on creating a really wonderful sleep space for your baby, is to get support that aligns with your values. So when you're looking for someone to work with, especially in the baby sleep space, I cannot stress this enough, there are so many sharks in this industry. Look for guidance that honors attachment, responsiveness, your intuition. That's the number 1 takeaway, your intuition, your baby's cues, and nervous system science. So they have to actually be aware of attachment theory and the nervous system. Sleep support should feel like support, not like you're trying to stamp a behavior out of a child. So in closing, if you've ever felt uneasy when your baby has gone quiet during sleep training, or sleep training just feels like crap for you, if something within you whispered like, this doesn't feel right, if their silence feels heavy, and I know that if you have ever attempted sleep training, you will resonate with this. If it feels heavy when they're sleeping, not peaceful, your intuition is speaking the truth that your nervous system already knew when you were doing it. And now we're starting to see research to reflect it too. So the good news is you do not need to ignore your baby's cues to get rest. You do not need to choose between sleep and connection. There is a responsive, intuitive, attachment-based way to honoring a path to longer stretches of sleep. Sleep isn't something that you train, it is something that you support. And my final example from our own home is my 3rd child. She's 2 and she's been sleeping through the night since about 18 months old, all by herself. I've done nothing. So all I've honored has been her rhythm, her temperament, and her sleep pressure, and she sleeps through. So finally, you deserve support too. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to explore sleep or nervous system-led motherhood, attachment-based routines, then please keep following my channel. Like and subscribe this video. It helps me immensely. But you're not alone, and you are already doing so much better than you think. Thank you for joining me.